If you're tired of not making progress and you're ready to be the artist you know you're meant to be, you're in the right place. You're listening to the Singer's Path podcast. The Path, or Performing Artists Training Hub, will cover everything, including singing tips that actually work, advice from top industry professionals, and life-changing mindset shifts. Out with the starving artist and in with the thriving artist. I'm your host, Sarah Bishop, professional singer, actor, educator, and entrepreneur. I'm not afraid to speak the truth and stop the gatekeeping of quality information so you can actually become the artist you dream of being. So let's get on the path, shall we? Even though we're all on our own journeys, it always helps to have a guide. Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Singer's Path podcast, and today we're going to talk about tone deafness and all of the societal associations with such a phrase. A lot of people's shame, a lot of people writing themselves off because one person once told them they were tone deaf, and then after that, they've always just associated with that, and they've created some story around the fact that they'll never be able to learn to sing. First of all, I'm Sarah. If this is your first time listening to me, I'm a vocal teacher. I own Sarah Bishop Vocal Studios. I have a couple associate teachers that teach under me. I also create online courses that help singers really move the needle without having to pay thousands of dollars for the top voice teachers in New York City or Los Angeles, or even Chicago. I know has some good teachers. New York City, though, does tend to be a hub of some of the best teachers in the world. And I'm going to give you that kind of information, but without gouging you. And that's what this is all about. Singer's Path podcast is all about bringing you accessible information so that you can feel a little bit less alone in your path. The Singer's Path actually stands for Performing Artists Training Hub. So we cover other things beyond just singing. So other things related to performance, such as lifestyle, mentality, some ideas that are gatekept, giving you behind the scenes look at what does it mean to be a professional singer or even a professional artist. So today, like I said, let's dive into this idea of tone deafness. Tone deafness is something that's thrown around by a lot of different people, even musical professionals that really didn't get a whole lot of training, or even trained professionals. It's just this thing that's stigmatized and very under-researched as a topic. And most people just kind of assume that if you have a hard time matching pitch as a child, you're screwed and it's just never happening for you. And yeah, just give up. You're never going to be able to learn to sing. And I actually am an example of someone that was told at a young age from someone close to me that I was actually tone deaf, believe it or not. And look at me, I'm a vocal teacher. I own a whole business. I'm a professional singer. I get paid to sing in concerts, at gigs, in professional theater productions, Broadway national tours, Broadway concerts. So, So I was told I was tone deaf, and I'm going to kind of launch into that story. And then I'm going to kind of tell you why this has been something that I have really delved into and even created something for people that have had this problem. And we're going to talk about the different effects that it has on people and how, if you have been told this, actually you do have hope. And I'm going to kind of explain all that science to you here. So first of all, my story, I grew up in a small town called Butler, Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, people do know what Butler, Pennsylvania is based off of the unfortunate event that happened in 2024. Unfortunate because I obviously don't agree with these political views, but to have my hometown linked to this event is really disappointing, honestly. And even if there was a rally in my hometown, I'm also disappointed in that as an artist and someone that tends to be arts focused, humanitarian focused, liberal in a sense. But anyway, it's the same hometown that the Trump assassination was attempted in. So yeah, don't love that about my hometown, but it is where I grew up. Very small town, Pennsylvania, rural area. And there wasn't a lot of performance opportunities when I was young, but looking back on and hearing about other people's communities, there were some and I involved myself in whatever there were. I guess there weren't a whole lot of it wasn't like a ritzy town. It was a rural area that, given the fact that it was pretty rural, did have a good amount of opportunities for a young person, but not like a huge amount like a big city or anything. So I actually was involved in dance classes for most of my childhood. I think I got enrolled when I was like 5. There's this big dance studio there with this owner that was not the nicest person in the whole world. But my family, because that was kind of the highest quality way to get involved in training your child in the arts, that's what we ended up doing. And I ended up doing competition dancing. And, if I'm honest, like, was I really that good of a dancer? Like, not really. I mean, I like love rhythm and music. And maybe if it was like nurtured a little bit more, I could have possibly maybe been better. But like, I don't know. I feel like their training style did not jive with my learning style, which theirs was very based in like fear and like drilling things. It was very old school, like Broadway smoker, like get your shit together. Like not nurturing, not really a place for children, if I'm honest. But anyway, that's the place where I learned to dance. And I don't get me wrong, I did have teachers there that really did nurture parts of me, and obviously started this love for performing, since that was one of the first places I did it. Like, obviously, yeah, they didn't completely like blow my candle out, you know what I mean? So anyway, at this dance studio, you could do a solo for this event that was called Night of the Stars, which is this like solo recital, more or less, that would alternate every year with like the big studio recital. So it was one of the Night of the Stars years, and there was this posting that happened at the studio that there was going to be this local pageant that was brand new. It was related to Miss America, and it was this circuit of like these little and junior Miss America, basically. So little Miss Butler County and junior Miss Butler County. And I was old enough to do the junior Miss Butler County. I think I was about 11. Like, I was pretty young. And I saw this posting and I was like, holy crap, this is like another opportunity for me to get on stage and perform. And I was hooked at that point. I mean, again, doing dance recitals, but then I did also have a piano teacher. It was really just piano and dance. So when there was this other opportunity to be on stage, which is this pageant, I was like, holy moly, I want to do this so bad. And so I went to sign up, but I realized you needed a talent. And I was like, oh, I don't have a talent. Well, I guess I have dance. Well, I would rather dance than play piano. So I'll dance. I'll sign up to dance. And I was about to sign up, and one of the teachers, I don't know, was standing by the sign up. And I do really remember this. I was going to sign up for this solo, right? I had my pen out. I was about to put my name on the list. And this dance teacher like leaned over. Apparently they weren't one of the nice ones. And they pointed at me and they said, "This is not for you." Period. It's like 11-year-old willing to pay them good money to like get a dance solo, right? Pay for a dance solo, be in this like apparently this prestigious Night of the Stars. I wasn't a star enough to have a dance solo for my parents to pay them good money to teach me a dance solo. But anyway, I needed this dance solo to be in this pageant, right? So it wasn't really so much about the soloist competition. It was about, or the recital. It was about, I need a talent, dude. I want to pay you so I have a solo so I can compete in this pageant. That's really what I want. And yeah, this dance teacher was like, no. And I was like, okay, then, I had a lot of audacity as a child, because then I said to my mom, who was standing there, well, I'll sing then, not play piano. I wanted to sing. There was something in me that was like, girl, you're a singer. But I had literally never sung before. Okay. Again, 11 years old. So I look at my mom and I go, I'm going to sing then. If they won't let me dance, I'll sing. And she looked at me dead in the eyes and she said, honey, you can't sing. You're tone deaf. Okay. Again, had my mother ever really heard me sing? Probably not. Maybe just like kind of humming to myself in the house or something. But I was a kid, of course I probably didn't have like accurate intonation, because children, unless it's like emphasized and drilled into them, they're just kind of like bebopping around. Like they're, you have to teach them the importance in staying in the middle of the pitch. And maybe I hadn't had that yet. but, or whatever she had heard me do, maybe didn't sound the best, but I was a child, right? Anyway, I was like, basically sticking the middle finger to my mom at age 11. I don't even know how I did this. I don't know why I did this, but I guess maybe because the rest of my life would depend on this. And I said, okay, all right, whatever. And then I like pretended to like kind of brush it off, and then I had gotten this like karaoke machine from my grandmother for Christmas that year. And it came with like the Shania Twain and like pop hits from the time, which was like, that don't impress me much. And like Kryptonite, like that's how old I was. Like those are like just coming out. Like those are the songs that were just coming out. So there was also a Broadway CD that came with it, with this little karaoke pack. And with it, there would be like a singing track and then like an accompaniment track. So I listened to the singing track of Castle on a Cloud from Les Mis, and I actually taught it to myself, and listened to it a whole lot and would play with the karaoke machine. And then, I was like, you know what, this isn't half bad, and I really want to sing, and I want to be in this pageant, damn it. And so I went downstairs to my mom. She had this like office room. I brought the karaoke machine, and I was like, hey, listen, I really want to sing, and I think I can, and I learned this song, and I think you should hear it. I like auditioned for my mother, basically. And with absolute conviction, sang Castle on a Cloud. And when I was done, my mother started to cry and apologized to me and said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Of course you can sing. Your voice is beautiful. Let's get you enrolled in this. And from that point on, I was allowed to pursue singing. So I, did a singing solo. Everybody at the dance studio, whoever enrolled in the pageant, was very surprised. I was asked to go audition for like this, like more or less like kids theater company in downtown Pittsburgh. That was like kind of like a school called CLO Mini Stars. But I didn't get in the first year because you had to kind of be enrolled in classes to actually like get into a Mini Stars show. So, that was a long time ago, and it was really far from my family. So I didn't end up doing Mini Stars, but I did end up doing musicals and singing a lot more and getting into choir. And like my whole life kind of unfolded after this event, right? So all that to say, okay. I can almost guarantee that like 50% of the population at some time have been like shamed for their voice, either directly or indirectly. And sometimes like I'll have students that come to me that are like, they just have such a high standard for singers, and they love music and singing so much that they put it on such a high pedestal. And just because they don't sound exactly like Ariana Grande fresh out of the womb, or they're not able to belt like Jessie J, and that bothers them. And, there's no understanding that whether it's pitch or it's learning the technical skills of singing, that it's either like you're born with it or you can't do it. You don't have a right to do it. And I've heard this too. Like I heard this, back, in the time when I was told I was tone deaf. It was like, well, I've already written you off, and you either could learn to sing or you can't, right? You either born with it or you're not. Like I remember my piano teacher saying that. And I'll tell you, my friends, that is just simply not true, because I've seen it for myself, and I've worked with hundreds of students all over the world, and I've taught them pitch, and I've taught them to transform their voice, and it's literally insane. And the first step is accepting and understanding that singing is a skill, just like everything else, right? Now, do some people become born with talent and they're like farther ahead? Yeah, that's true, right? Kelly Clarkson was born with an amazing voice, right? She didn't really require training. She was born with that. However, there are even professional singers like Ed Sheeran who were not born with a naturally gorgeous voice. Like there's interviews that you can look up of Ed Sheeran being like, yeah, I like sounded like shit, and then I learned to sing and I practiced it, and then I became Ed Sheeran. You know what I mean? So it depends on, like, obviously, if you love something and it's on your heart. Like clearly singing was on my heart as an 11-year-old. I was like, not even my own mom is going to tell me that I can't sing, right? And not everybody's born with that audacity. I'm not quite sure what divine intervention that was, of why I would defy these parental figures, or literally my mom and these dance teachers in this way. but like it was meaningful. It meant like I look at that as like, listen, this was like going to set me up for my entire life. And like there's something in me that like knew that this was for me. So if you're listening to this and singing has been on your heart, let's talk about different kinds of shame that might have been experienced as a young singer that aren't fair to you. Okay. The big one is direct shaming. Obviously, like, oh, your uncle at Christmas was like, she sounds like shrill. Like you get like some backhanded comment that was like made in jest to get a laugh, but at your expense, you know, or like, God, you can't sing. Your like friends are rolling their eyes at you for like how maybe not even maybe in your pitch, but in your tone quality, like, oh God, stop. And like you not bullied, but like kind of made fun of. You get made fun of for not having that finished product right away. If that's established, especially when you're super, super young, that's a little bit of a bitch to bring out. You know what I mean? Or to undo, but it is possible. So that would be your first step, is to kind of look at any direct shaming that happened to you, at any point in your life, and what caused you to kind of shrink back into your shell. And so when you can pinpoint that moment, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to somehow, you know, you can get therapy, you can get support, you can do some kind of hypnosis, but more or less we're going to need to rewire that even as you begin to start working on your singing. If that belief, if that core belief is in there that like, I can't learn to sing and I'm a shit singer is like in there, like you're going to have to do work to change that narrative, with repetition, neuroplasticity. Like that is an element of this that like, however we feel about ourselves will manifest. So if you don't have the belief that like you can actually get better, and maybe you aren't actually a shit singer, you just need to practice. Like if that doesn't come out, then you will stay stuck and you won't make as much progress. So like that's number one. The second way you could have been shamed was indirect shaming. So kind of like I said, like witnessing other people shaming others for sounding bad, right? Especially in the 90s, people were like really cruel. Like the 90s and early 2000s, this like anti-bullying rhetoric wasn't like a thing, right? So people would just be openly made fun of, even on like TV, like MTV, VH1, American Idol. They would just completely like trash people and pick people on purpose that seemed mentally unwell and use them as like the laughing stock, right? Like use them as the butt of a joke of like, how dare you? You think you belong here, right? And I think that especially American Idol, like so many people who love and adore singing looked at that indirect shaming, and it almost became like, wow, it is like super not safe for me to be a beginning singer. Like, wow, like I'm going to get shamed and shunned if I even try to open my mouth. Like my voice is not worthy at all. I shouldn't even try, right? So if any of these things sound familiar, yeah, you need to look at that. You need to look at that. Because, and listen, if you don't feel like diving in because you don't actually care about singing that much, then like fine. Like you don't have to, but if you're listening to this podcast, the Singer's Path podcast kind of sounds like you're interested in singing, to be honest. And so what would be the harm in identifying that root of that belief and maybe, you know, deciding to change it, deciding to feel a different way about it? So that just takes a bit of time and repetition. But that's the underlayer that needs to happen while you're in the process of beginning to trust yourself and start to actually exercise your brain and your voice, so that it does actually start to become stronger and you do start to feel more confident about calling yourself a singer. So once we identify where's that story coming from, okay, the second thing we got to look at is this societal understanding. And I'm going to use scientific information that I've researched as I've created my pitch course, which was formerly known as Pitch Please. But now, can't even say that. It's going to be rebranded and named something else at the time that I'm recording this. Hi, actually, it's me, it's future Sarah. Since it's taken a while since I recorded this to when the updates were actually happening, we have successfully come up with a brand new name for what was formerly known as Pitch Please, which will now be drum rolls, please. Maybe Amanda can put in a drum roll sound. I'll leave her space to do that. The new name is Pitchin Musician. Whoa! We got to really emphasize that P so it doesn't sound like bitchin' musician, but Pitchin Musician. That is the brand new title, and we're completely launching it again, and we're completely rebranding it. And I think also, not that I don't love that old title of Pitch Please, but it also is more encompassing of what the course actually does. Pitchin Musician is really all about teaching you not only to match pitch, but there is quite a lot about becoming a musician and understanding theory and learning how to read music and getting familiar with rhythm and really, like, if you haven't sung before and like you haven't been in choir before, or maybe you have and like that was always something you struggled with, like giving you the foundation to set you up for success so that learning to sing and learning harder things that you're stacking upon, more and more layers just becomes easier and easier. So Pitchin Musician is an all-encompassing name. I'm so excited about this. And here's another thing that we're announcing is with this whole rebrand thing, we are going to be doing a relaunching sale. Now, this sale is only going to be for a few days, but since you're listening to the podcast, you're like the first one to know about it. And if you go to the Pitchin Musician website, which the landing page will be linked here at the bottom of the episode, just use code REBRANDPITCH25 at checkout, and you'll get 25% off. It's 2025 after all. Let's take 25% off of that, right? And it will work for both the payment plan and the pay in full option. Obviously, the payment plan ends up being a little bit more because there's a fee every time there's a different payment. But using that 25% off code, you will shave off a quarter of that price. Again, the rebrand special flash sale code REBRANDPITCH25, REBRANDPITCH25 at checkout. Please keep in mind this is a flash sale. It's only running from March 31st from when you're hearing this to April 4th, 2025. So do not wait. Jump on it now. Shave off a quarter of that price. And I will see you in Pitchin Musician. But before we even get into that, let me convince you for a second that like tone deafness is actually super, super rare. And, chances are you're actually not. So even if your uncle called you tone deaf or your mom or your sister or your friend, they're wrong, probably. So first of all, tone deafness is actually a medical condition called amusia. And it literally means you're deaf to the tones. Like you cannot hear the tones. Like you can hear sound, but it more or less, like when I was doing research, it more or less when you would listen to music would sound similar to like if that cochlear implant sound, where it's just noise. Generally, music folks tend to not be able to enjoy music. They don't even like music. Okay, if you like music, you're not a music. All right, because music isn't noise to you. Music is pleasurable somewhat, right? So that's one of the biggest symptoms of being diagnosably amusic is that you don't even listen to music. And I actually have met people that don't like music. They don't really like it. They don't listen to it. Now it shocks me every time, but that could be because it's just noise to them. Their brain can't differentiate the different pitches, the melodies, the harmonies. It just sounds like too much crap. Okay. Another way that you can tell whether you're actually medically amusic, and again, I'm not a medical professional. You'd have to like go seek out a clinic or something to like medically diagnose you. Again, this is not medical information, but just from what I've researched from medical papers and studies. Another indication is that you can't tell whether the pitches are going up or down. Even if you listen to like a melody, like Mary Had a Little Lamb, Mary had a little lamb, right? It would just all kind of sound the same. Like you wouldn't be able to know that the pitches go down, Mary had, right? That you wouldn't be able to know that. You'd just be like, oh, I can't, you wouldn't be, you'd get songs mixed up. You certainly get nursery rhymes mixed up, right? You wouldn't be able to differentiate if I was doing a siren going up in my voice or going down in my voice. If you could actually hear what I was talking about as I'm doing that, girl, you're not tone deaf, okay? So if you can tell I'm going up and down, if you can tell the difference in melodies, and you can actually enjoy music and you like it, okay, you're not tone deaf, right? So why do so many people think this? Well, first of all, it's a really under-researched thing. They're just starting to do research on this. There have been studies of people getting progressively better when they just practice with a teacher, when they do slow, conscious focus on pitches. And my theory is the reason that maybe some people have a hard time accurately recreating pitch, right? So like they can hear it. They're not deaf to the tones, right? They're not tone deaf, but there is this very real thing that they can't match pitch well. Like they're like, I'm sure you have friends and family that no matter how much they listen to the song, they have a hard time accurately hitting the notes. And my theory is that actually has to do more with their musical influence, with the development of the brain, and how much they maybe played instruments, or they sang at a younger age, or they even had it emphasized that it's important to sing the correct notes, right? All of those things can actually lead to pitchiness or pitch recreation issues. I've even known professional musicians who maybe play the guitar professionally or the trombone professionally, who hate their own voice because their pitch is actually so good. And they get angry and annoyed that they can't, with their physical body, recreate the pitches that they hear so clearly in their head, right? So if you're super hypercritical of not being able to match pitch for yourself, it might be because your pitch is excellent, okay? And even perfect pitch, especially perfect pitch people. Perfect pitch people have a physical, like neurological reaction when pitches aren't literally in the center, like they cringe. My father's actually an example of this. He really cannot stand hearing inaccuracy in pitch. Like he like cringes, and even though he didn't like take a lot of musical, instrument lessons or anything growing up, like his teacher did tell him in high school that he does have perfect pitch just based off of like his accuracy of like recalling pitches, and like his honestly his like reaction to it being off pitch is a good indication of that. And so if you're a musician and you're a professional musician and you've just absolutely loathed your own voice your whole life, this kind of gets me to the point of, okay, so what if the issue wasn't actually hearing the pitch, but it really is physically recreating the pitch? How do we teach our body to be able to physically recreate something that's in the center? Because when we sing, our body is our instrument. We're not playing a saxophone. We're not playing a piano that we can tune. Like we have to be constantly tuning on every single note. So this comes with what I refer to as muscle memory or pitch memory. Now, at first, when you start to drill this, and this is kind of what the research papers were talking about, is like you just have to drill where the center of the pitch is over and over and over again until your body starts to remember and you don't have to think about it so much. And it can be pretty monotonous because you do have to just repetitively be like, okay, I know in my body this is C. I know in my body this is C, right? And most of the time, like when you sing, you're not going to have to do so a cappella. Although when I have in my pitch training program, named to be determined below, you have to do it like many, many times. Even if you're having a piano played with you, it's more beneficial to try to practice a cappella with either someone that can hear pitch well and can adjust you in time, or to play around with a tuner, which can be incredibly frustrating. But you need something that's going to hold you accountable and teach you like, hey, I can see this over and over again, that I'm hitting the right note. Okay, I am going to memorize what this feels like to be in the middle of the pitch over and over again. So if you're a musician and you're like, wow, I would just like love to not hate my singing voice because I know I have a good ear, but like I can't recreate it and it like hurts my ego, then you just need to practice, dude. You need to practice singing in the middle of the pitch over and over again. Now, something that can happen that does influence pitch is actually a technical or a physiological thing with balance in the voice. And so this can come down to vocal coordinations, like how thick your voice is, how thin your voice is, if you have balanced resistance, if you're working too hard and muscling things, like all of that can also affect intonation, right? But the first step is you need to just generally at least be able to match pitch well in at least your speaking voice. And then just know as you get more advanced, like your technical lineup and your vocal balance can absolutely have to do with how accurate you are in your intonation. Like you could think about like, I'm maybe that girl in your community that like insists on belting everything and like they're like chronically flat, or that soprano in your church that is like constantly going sharp and you're like, oh my God, why can you not hear that? Well, it's mostly because of probably like a vocal alignment imbalance, a technical imbalance that's causing even some overtones to come in and kind of take over the sound or push the sound in an opposite direction. For example, belting tends to be a chest dominant style, so it's a thicker style. There's going to be other episodes kind of explaining the difference between chest voice and head voice, but more or less this thicker vocal fold configuration often brings in a lot of bass frequencies into the acoustics that you're creating, right? So like the sound you're creating, if it's a really chesty sound, aka a belt, it's going to bring in a lot of bass. And so even if the singer in their head is thinking like, oh, I'm on pitch, I'm thinking the pitch, that lack of balance in the voice, like too much chest dominance, too much bass frequency will actually drag the pitch down and the audience will have it perceived as being flat. Okay. And the same is for head voice. Is something is like super heady and the vocal folds are really thin, that's going to bring in a whole lot of treble frequency into like the sound that you're creating. And so because there's so much treble, it's going to kind of push the perception of the pitch higher and make it sharp. All right. And you can get into all of this, like studying acoustics and doing all kinds of stuff like that. Actually ends up being really complicated scientifically to understand all of that. So that's like my most basic way that I can explain that. But yeah, there also can be a technical imbalance that causes occasional pitch issues. But for the most part, what I've noticed is that if someone is actually genuinely pitchy, it's like just a couple reasons as to why. One, they didn't have the proper background to like really understand the importance of intonation at a young age. So their brain really didn't form around that because of like, they didn't really have musical influences suggesting that they do that. My husband's an example of that. Like his brother played cello. And so his brother Jack has excellent pitch, but Kyle, who didn't play any instruments, doesn't, because he didn't play a string instrument where pitch was emphasized, right? The second other reason could be there's a story around it. So there's kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy as like, oh, well, I can't sing, so therefore you can't sing. Right? You haven't accepted that it's actually a skill that can be learned. And so then you're just kind of going around believing that you can't, and it's inhibiting your ability to accurately recreate pitch. And three, maybe it's just like a muscle thing. Like you're an excellent musician, you can hear it, or, you know, you sing well. It's just either an imbalance acoustically, or it's like you just haven't practiced it. And again, it kind of ties in the story. You haven't practiced it, and since you weren't born being able to physically do it 100% of the way, you've just written yourself off. When you really can, with lots of repetition, actually drill in the feeling of being on pitch, just like you've drilled in the sound of it being in the middle of the pitch as a musician. So all this to say, right? Basically, the idea of tone deafness is like this word is thrown around way too much, when in reality, if we're talking about the statistics of who's actually diagnosably amusic for the research that they've done, is anywhere between 1 and I think I saw one paper that said 4%. So 1 in 4% of people. Now, the 4% sounds like a lot to me. And, you know, you would think that they'd be able to agree on a statistic. But again, this is a newly researched thing. So they, of course, scientists can't agree, but I'd say it's pretty low. All right. And the symptoms of amusia I described earlier would be the indications if you like maybe actually are amusic, and like no shame in that. Something that I love to share, that even diagnosably amusic people, there was a study done in Montreal in the past couple years that actually still, even people that were still diagnosed literally medically as tone deaf, could still improve their voice. Like they still got better with a teacher, working on it, repping it out, because our brains are amazing. And pitch is something around the brain, like to hear and actually assess pitch is something with the brain. It's a very complicated thing. There's a whole lesson on this in the pitch course that breaks down with as much information as I had, not being like at Oxford, but reading their medical papers, right? That kind of discussed like what is going on in the brain when we're hearing sound, and how we're able to differentiate. I mean, it literally involves both sides of the brain. There's signals going back and forth, like it has to hit your ear, which sends a nerve signal to one side of your brain. And then there's a tonotopic map that like displays the pitches as if it's like a keyboard in your brain. And like, it's like this whole thing. It's pretty amazing. So again, go to that pitch course that I've created that's linked below, if you want to have a more in-depth scientific explanation of like what our brain is actually doing. But all that to say, like, even if you are diagnosed as tone deaf, like you can get better. Okay. So like, it's kind of this obsolete thing that's happening actually. Yeah. So I love demystifying this because I think it's a lot of singers, again, musicians at heart, that like love singing. And honestly, who doesn't love singing? Most people do. I think it's a natural thing that people have done like historically, like primally we sing. Even primally, we are wired to understand the differences in pitches. Because like think about like being like a caveman out in the forest and you hear a deep rumbling of a tiger and you can tell, hey, that pitch is real low. I better run. Or you hear like little squeaky birds chirp and you're like, that's dinner for me, yo. You know what I mean? Like we are like through evolution wired to understand pitch. Now it comes down to the physical recreation if we're trying to sing. Okay. Now, and I kind of mentioned this before, but drilling pitch isn't the most fun thing in the world. I've tried to make it as fun as I possibly can in my pitch training course. But it's tedious, yo. Like you just have to drill it. It's just teaching your brain how to hear something physically and recreate it with your body. It is a skill, just like anything else. And if I'm completely honest, I know I just kind of spatted all this information that I've researched as I was creating my pitch course. But if I'm for real, I actually didn't know all of this information until I was already teaching people to sing accurately on pitch. And this is because when I became a teacher back in 2020, I believed just like everybody else that like you were either born to learn to sing or you couldn't, right? You were either born with pitch or you weren't. I had the same idea, yo. Even though I was told I was tone deaf, and my mom would do some of these exercises that are in this pitch course with me naturally. Like I did after I was told that I could sing, like I still had to drill in physically these pitches and we would absolutely do everything that I have in that course. Like I did with my mother back in the day. Okay. But even still, even though I had already done it, I even had that idea of like, well, I don't even know if I can help this person because I don't really believe in this. I don't like subscribe to this. Nonetheless, I had multiple singers that were willing to pay me a lot of money to teach them to sing. And I was like, this like makes no sense. Like, why do I keep getting these pitchy people? And these people would come to me and they'd be like, I have the belief that anything is possible. I have the belief and I subscribe to the idea that you can learn to do anything. So I want to learn to do this thing. And I was like, okay. Like, I was like, they're paying me. Like, I better figure this out. Right? I was like, well, I guess we could try. I guess I was told I was tone deaf and like I did some stuff and like I know some stuff from choir. So like maybe. And so what I ended up doing was just more intuitively teaching people how to stay in the center of the pitch. And I created this like system and then it worked. It freaking worked. If you actually go, I don't know if TikTok's even going to be around by the time this is released, but if you even go to the link, I believe I have a video of one of my students, Zach, showing his absolute insane transformation around pitch. Literally came in, couldn't even like, I would play the note, he would be somewhere else in the stratosphere. Now, granted, it is harder for lower voices to like replicate higher voices when they're hearing a pitch, but like that's why in the pitch course that I have, like the low voices have actually like a low voice demonstrating them. So like that whole section for male-born people, they have male demonstrations so that it's easier. So we don't have to like do the whole octave thing, right? That my voice is already higher and then like tone quality wise, like it doesn't sound like yours. So it's going to be harder to match, right? Like I already built that in because we realized through trial and error that was happening. But anyway, like Zach like completely went from like not being able to match at all to like arguably being able to like book a professional show. I was like, this is like really good. It was insane. But you know what Zach did? Zach practiced every single day. Zach is like no one I've ever met before. He practiced every single day for like a year. Okay. He completely transformed his voice. And if you don't believe me, you can go watch the video. Okay. But a lot of what we were doing when we were working together was exactly what we do in this pitch training course that I created. I created the pitch training course after I had all of these students that had success. I was like, there is something here. Like there has to be like, why is this working? I'm not magic. Like the brain must be able to do this, right? Like F those stories, like they're clearly not true. But then I was like feeling really insecure because I was like, well, I can't just like intuitively make like, I feel like I've just been making this up. Like how can this be accurate? So that's when I like took about a year of researching before I created the course. So it was all based in neuroscience and as much research I could get my fingers on before I created something for the public where they were going to pay to do it, right? So all that to say, like, it's pretty amazing that like I intuitively could come up with this. Real people were responding to it. And then I researched it, found out that it was completely justified and backed in science, and then created something. So like, it kind of blows my mind that, and it humbles me that I got to witness people completely transform their mindset around their voice, but also like they came in with this idea, right? Like they almost taught me that this was possible. And then we just kind of found a solution together. And that's how this pitch course was created. So all this to say, after the many minutes of me talking about pitch and my passion around helping people understand that singing is a skill and there are steps that need to be had, and it takes many years and commitment, but it can be very fulfilling in people's souls and their hearts, because like who doesn't love music? And I also truly believe that singing is a right. I think people have a right to sing. They have a right to use their voice, and it's not really fair that people get shamed out of that form of expression. So all that to say, I'm all about pitch, yo. And listen, even as a professional singer, I'm not like perfectly on pitch all the time. I think this just goes back to like people's expectations of themselves and remembering that you're like a human being. And like, you know, here's an example, like when women menstruate, right? Their vocal folds are naturally thicker, so they might have a tendency to go flat. Like their pitch might be funky for like a week, right? You're a physical body. You're not like some freaking metal instrument, okay? Like you're a person that changes and can be affected by things, and that can in turn affect your recreation of pitch. So all that to say, I hope that brought some insight to you about how intonation is something that's perceived in the brain, but can be physically drilled in. It can be physically achieved to have better pitch recreation. And it doesn't matter your background. As long as you're not diagnosably amusic, you can improve probably relatively quickly. And even if you are diagnosably amusic, you can still improve it. And so if this has given you hope, which I hope it has, because again, you deserve to sing. Truly. I really believe that. If this has given you hope, please check the link in my bio from this literally like revolutionary thing that I have been blessed to just be a part of, in kind of being the more or less the frontiermen of teaching people that they can sing on pitch, because people they're almost ashamed to come out about it. I don't really care. I'm like, listen, no, I've seen it with my own eyes. It's possible. Like F you and your like stupid societal ideas of this. Like people deserve to be heard. Like, let's go. I made this for you because I care about you, and I want you to not be afraid, and I want you to be confident, and I want you to believe in yourself, and I want you to take yourself seriously and do the work though too. So this pitch course creates everything for you. It gives you step-by-step lessons that take you from the very, very beginning. Now, let me tell you again, it's not like an easy or necessarily like fun process. It is tedious. You're going to have to go slow. It might seem overwhelming at first, but listen, I give you the hard stuff right away, because if you can do that hard stuff, you can do anything. Okay. So as long as you have patience with yourself, you really have it on your heart to do this. Even if you're studying with a teacher and your teacher's kind of getting on you for pitch, or you're a voice teacher listening back, feel free to email me at sarahbishopvocalstudio@gmail.com, because I often will offer a different arrangement for teachers who are working with students so that you can make it more accessible for your studio and whatnot. So if you're a teacher or you have a teacher, tell them to email me, and sometimes we can do some like studio arrangements for multiple students that they have. Or if you just have one tricky student, like please reach out. Like, send me an email. I love hearing stories from teachers of like, hey, listen, I'm struggling with this student. I don't know what to do with them. Like actually a lot of the people that have purchased this course were like that. They're teachers, and then they use it for their studio. And again, like it gives you a curriculum and a guide of like, okay, how do we do this? How do we actually do this difficult thing of like kind of reprogramming the brain and then allowing the body to follow? Hey, it's me, future Sarah again, reminding you that the new branding is actually called Pitchin Musician, and it's currently on sale right now for only a few more days. So whether you're a teacher that wants to use it with your students, or you're a singer that's like, hey, I really want to get my pitch under control. I want to feel really good about it. I want to feel confident about starting to read music. And I want to feel like, hey, every time I hit the note, I'm in the middle of the pitch. So go right now, go to the link below for the Pitchin Musician rebrand sale. Use code REBRAND PITCH25 at checkout. Take 25% off of that for a tool that's really going to help you, right? And remember, there's a flash sale. You can't dawdle. It ends on April 4th, 2025. If you don't, you're going to be sad. And you're going to be sitting there twiddling your thumbs, kicking yourself that you didn't take advantage of it. Information about Pitchin Musician is linked down below with all the fancy new logo and new branding and new page and everything that you need to know. And I really hope you get your butt in there. You get it to help your students. And I'm really, really excited for you to start feeling confident about singing the right notes. You don't have to be embarrassed at Christmas anymore singing carols. You'll be like, no, I know I've drilled in my pitch. I know this works. It's a tedious process, but it's really, really, really pays off so that you can finally start to embrace freeing your sound. And with that, I will see you next time on the Singer's Path podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. This helps me get this information out to more artists all over the world. Let's work together to spread the joys of music. Until next time, I'm your host, Sarah Bishop, signing off from the Singer's Path podcast. Thanks for listening.